gotta say my bit first. What was my bit? This is what happens when ATAC asks me to have, like, a tagline, and I don't prepare. I mean, I did prepare. I wrote it down, but it's like, I wrote it down. Does I really make it a tagline? Is it just as fun that way? I'm sorry I can't make a catchy intro for you, ATAC! Okay, cue the intro there. That's your thing now. Congratulations, this is what you brought. So, we have Theseus to talk about today. So, Theseus, most people know him because of the Ship of Theseus idea, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But Theseus, he's so interesting. I loved reading about Theseus. I actually learned some new shit about Theseus, so I'm excited. So Theseus was born to a man named Aegeus, who was one of the ancient kings of Athens, but he never had a child, so since he was disappointed by this, he headed off and asked the oracle what to do about this, and all she said to him was, "Do not loosen the bulging mouth of the wineskin until you have reached the height of Athens, lest you die of grief." And of course, he was just like, what the fuck does that mean? Oracle do not make sense. That's just the rules. They don't say things in a straight line way. They're supposed to not make sense. Aegeus, of course, was like, that doesn't make any sense. So he goes and talks to his friend Pythias, king of Troezen, where he was staying at the time. Pythias figured out what it meant somehow, not really explained. I mean, guess the last part, unless you die of grief. Pythias did was get Aegeus drunk and had his daughter, Aethra, go and lay with him. In some tellings, Aethra actually got a message from Athena to leave Aegeus while he slept, and head to the island of Sphaera? I'm not gonna pronounce that right. Sphaera. Final answer. Where she laid and wrapped in the waves as the ocean took her for the night, causing Theseus to be part mortal and part divinity, because Poseidon could be his father. Poseidon probably is his father. So Aethra gave birth to Theseus, and Aegeus placed the sandals and sword under a large rock and told Aethra when their child is old enough to be able to move the rock, he can take the sword and the sandals later and come claim his birthright to prove his patronage. So Aegeus returned to Athens, leading Aethra and the newborn. Aegeus went back to Athens and married Medea. Yeah, the one who just been married to Jason. Same one, right after. So as Theseus got older, he learned of his true birthright, and Aethra told him to take the sandals and swords to go to Athens. He was told he can go one of two ways. He can go by sea, which is considered much safer, or go by land, where he'd have to pass by 6 entrances to the underworld. Not sure why there's just 6 entrances to the underworld along the way, but whatever. So of course, because he was a young man who had balls of steel and was untouchable, he chose the dangerous way. Hubris. You gotta learn it, kids. Let me actually show you the picture, the map of where he went. Because yes, I actually saved this. Supposedly, along that route, between Athens and Troezen down there, they just hit up 6 gates of the underworld. There's just 6 of them along the way. Sure. Whatever. I'm ignoring them. They don't exist to me. I don't know what they are. Maybe they used to be gates of the underworld, but they're closed. They're closed. Don't worry about it. Be going to the underworld? Maybe. You might. But not here. That's definitely not what the underworld is. At least not in my headcanon. I don't care what this says. We're ignoring this. So, he decided to go the dangerous way. So, at the first entrance, Epidaurus, Theseus encountered Periphetes, a son of either Hephaestus of Poseidon. He traveled along this path using a large bronze club as a cane. He would stop and rob and kill travelers that came by him. Theseus got his club from him and beat him to death with it, leading Theseus being commonly depicted with his club. Yeah, second stop, and I'm going to actually doodle this depiction because I'm going to do a horrid depiction of this one. So this next guy was at the isthmus near Corinth. There was a being known as Sinus, who would tie travelers between 2 bent pine trees and then cut the trees so that the travelers would be ripped in half. Let me show you. So we have pine tree bent like crazy here. Trees bent down with ropes tied between them that were attached to a person by this absolute monster who would just cut the trees and let them be ripped. So yeah, Theseus once again gave him a taste of his own medicine by attaching him to the trees and killing them that way, and then seduced his daughter and bore a child with her. That's what you do. So just north, at a place called Chromion, he faced off with the Chromedian So. There's multiple interpretations of this pig. Either it was raised by a witch nearby named Theia, which witches weren't really talked about in ancient Greece either. Like, you can technically call, like, maybe 2 other people witches, but even then it's not commonly used. Or Theia was the name of the So itself. Some say Theia bred the So, others say it's a child of Echidna and Typhon, simply raised by the witch. It's also interpreted that the boar may be the ancestor to the Chaldean boar that the Argonauts dealt with. In one telling as well, the So isn't even actually a pig, but it's just a regular human woman thief who was just called a pig because of how obese her children were and the vulgarity of her manners. And then near Megara, Theseus faced a robber named Skyron, who had been forcing travelers along a narrow passage to stop and wash his feet, and then while they were kneeling, he'd kick them off the cliff to be eaten by a giant turtle. You can guess what Theseus did here. And then, while approaching Ulysses, which I originally thought was out of the way, but re-looking at the map, it actually really wasn't that far out of the way, he encountered King Cherson. Cherson? How do we pronounce this last time? I don't remember, but not the one from Athens. It's a different one, so we can call him something different. He challenged all the travelers there to wrestle with him, which he then used to just kill them. Want to take a guess again what Theseus did? Do you want to guess how Theseus finally defeated this man? He just likes giving other people a taste of their medicine. Understandable, honestly. And then lastly, he faced off with Procrustes, also known as the Stretcher, because he had 2 different beds. Now, whatever you were thinking, whatever you think, stop it. Whatever you're thinking, stop it. I'm inside your minds. Stop it. Anyways, so the Stretcher would have travelers lay on one and make them fit, whether by stretching them or by cutting off their feet. And since he used 2 different beds, he made sure no one would fit them. Theseus then strapped him to his own bed and cut off his legs before decapitating him. Basically the same thing he's doing to everyone else, might as well be. And then he finally arrives in Athens. When Theseus arrives in Athens, he didn't give himself away immediately. In fact, he was taken in as a simple guest at his father's house. But Medea, his father's new wife, recognized him somehow despite never having met this boy, and panicked that it would mean her son Metis wouldn't get the throne. So she sent Theseus on the impossible task to capture the Marathonian bull. Supposedly the same bull that created the Minotaur, but I digress. So Theseus succeeded in capturing the Marathonian bull, which angered Medea when he returned. So she decided to poison Theseus's drink. She would have gotten away with it, but King Aegeus suddenly recognized Theseus's sandals and knocked the drink away. Which means he knew it was poison. And he was okay with his wife just poisoning some random dude in your palace. But not his son. If it's some random dude, that's okay. But we're gonna stop it because I realize that's my son. Theseus has a fucked up life, not gonna lie. But because of Theseus' rival, Theseus' father had a brother named Pallas. And suddenly, Pallas' children felt threatened that they would not be getting the throne anymore. So they hatched a plan to kill Theseus by having one group corner him from the front, another group come from the back. Theseus, though... Let me draw this. So the plan was, this is the house that they were staying at, or the temple or building or whatever. Good enough. That's a house, trust me. So they decided one group would come from the front, and then if Theseus made his escape to the back, that's where another group would be to ambush them. Strategies. This way Theseus had nowhere to run, nowhere to go, just had to deal with the pincer maneuver. That's probably not pincer maneuver, but close enough. It's the only one I know. It's the only one I know by name. I'm not tactician. I was gonna say tacticist, but I don't think that's the right word. Like strategist, but I'm neither of those things. That's all that matters. But Theseus found out about this plan because of a messenger named Leo snitching on them. So Theseus snuck out and actually snuck up behind them and slaughtered them all. Here's Theseus waiting up here on a tree, waiting for his chance to sneak in and kill them all. Hope you guys can see Theseus, kind of from far away. So Theseus snuck up behind them and killed them all. Hit him with the old switcheroo. So now we get to talk about what Theseus is also most known for. He is advanced with the Labyrinth. So before the cousins died, they actually assassinated someone else first. At the Panathenaic Games, which are held every 4 years in Athens, a son of King Minos of Crete named Androgeus attended and was a crowd favorite. So the sons of Pallas killed him because they were just that petty. So King Minos was angered by this, understandably, and sent a fleet and demanded to be given his son's murderers or he'd destroy Athens. This is where the stories take two different paths. Either King Agis, not knowing who the killers were, offered up all of Athens as tribute, agreeing to send 7 boys and 7 girls to Crete every great year, which was every 7 years roughly. Some tales say that Minos had his war and won, and then decreed every 9 years 7 boys and girls would be taken to Crete. These young Athenians were being sent to Crete in order to be fed to the Minotaur, the son of Minos' wife, after she was cursed to fall in love with the bull. The Minotaur was taken and locked in a giant maze known as the Labyrinth under Crete. More on that later. We'll get there. Hold on. It's just about Theseus' part in the story. So Theseus got tired of this sacrifice happening on the 3rd cycle, so he volunteered to go in place of one of the young boys to try and talk to the Minotaur. He says talk, but he goes... Anyways, sailing off for Crete on a ship with black sails, telling his father that if he would return successful, and when he came back, the ship would have white sails to prove that he was successful. So upon arriving in Crete, he was stripped of all of his weapons and armor, but Minos' daughter, Ariane, fell in love with him, and thus gave him a golden thread, on the advice of the creator of the labyrinth, Daedalus. More on him later as well. So Ariane led him to the labyrinth, where he tied a piece of the thread to the door and whipped out some sword he apparently hid all this time under his tunic. Whatever. It would be easier to say Ariane gave it to him, but whatever. And so he went down to the labyrinth, following the directions of Daedalus, to always go forward and down, never left or right. So following these instructions, he found the heart of the labyrinth, fought the Minotaur, and escaped alive. I just like my jokes up here because it's like, especially my left, right, up, down, A, B, for the directions given by Daedalus on how to get there. So the return home was also very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Exciting? Eventful. So Theseus led the Athenian youth out of the labyrinth, which included Ariane's own sister, Phaedra. Not sure why she was down there, since that would make her Athenian, and Ariane is from Crete, but whatever. We don't explain these kind of things. It just happens. So they took Ariane and Phaedra back onto the ship, as well as the other kids, and sailed north from Crete. They actually stopped on the island of Naxos, which we'll be talking more about later as well, but here it's said that as they were all sleeping on the shores of Naxos, Dionysus came by and saw Ariane and fell in love. So he asked Theseus to have her, to which Theseus agreed. Other tales of Dionysus just steal Ariane away, and some tales have Ariane just abandoned there by Theseus, and then Dionysus meets her, but we're going with Dionysus just asked Theseus nicely for his woman, and Theseus went, yeah, sure, take her. Don't pity Ariane here, though. There's more about the one tale where she was just abandoned, but we'll get there when it's time, when we talk about Naxos. I left Ariane for Dionysus. I didn't realize the implications of him leaving Ariane and dating Dionysus there. Anyways, so they sailed on and sailed north to Delos, actually. According to Plutarch, they performed a dance there that was said to be performed for years afterwards. They moved and twisted in ways to mimic the shape of the labyrinth, which was then called the crane according to Dicerakos. Dicerakos? Some pronunciation I can't say. So when Theseus started reaching the shores of mainland Greece, he forgot to change out the sails. So the black sails are still up, which to his father meant that Theseus had failed and thus was dead. So seeing these sails, watching the seas, he decided to just throw himself off a cliff in Cape Sunion in his grief. Yeah, the one where the Gorgons fed in my campaign. The one that they found the ship at Theseus at. So that's what the dad assumed. And it's like, whoops, forgot to change the sails. My bad. But Theseus' ventures actually did not end with the labyrinth. Theseus later met his best friend for life, a man named Pirithous. Pirithous had rattled the cattle that Theseus kept, letting them escape to lure Theseus out to fight in order to test his skill. However, when they fought, they were actually both highly impressed with the other's physical skill and form, how graceful and beautiful the other was, so they decided to make up and become best friends. According to the poet Ovid, their friendship actually made Theseus' new wife, Phaedra, Ariane's little sister, very jealous, which made her decide to try and seduce one of Theseus' other sons, Hippolytus. Hippolytus rejected Phaedra, and so Phaedra decided to claim that Hippolytus tried to make advancements on her, causing Theseus to call upon Poseidon to have the waves spook Hippolytus's horses as he rode along the cliffs and cause him to fall into the ocean and drown. Some tales have Phaedra be found out later, and then instead of facing any worse fates or deaths, she descends herself to make it quick. Some tales have her hanging herself, leaving the note that Hippolytus did this after being rejected instead, to make it more believable. So, before I tell you guys this next line, I want you to understand, I was looking at the Wikipedia article, because yes, I'm sorry, I know I'd probably use Wikipedia as a resource and gather information that way, but Wikipedia had this line, and I just started laughing, and I looked at ATAC and I said, Wikipedia cannot be funnier than me. Because the line is, Theseus, a great abductor of women, and his bosom companion, Pritheus. I can't beat that. I can't beat that. There's no beating that line. No joke I can make can top that one. A great abductor of women. That's a way to describe Theseus. So the bosom buddies, since they're sons of Zeus and Poseidon, they should marry daughters of Zeus. So Theseus chose Helen. No, not the one of Troy. No matter what Virgil tells you, we don't believe him. We don't listen to him. It is not the one of Troy. It's a different Helen. It's coincidence. So the pair go and kidnap the young Helen. They plan to keep her until she was old enough to marry. And so they dropped her off at Theseus's mother's place, who was just okay with that, and left. Eventually, Castor and Pollux were able to rescue her from there, at least. Listen to him. Got it. No, don't listen to Virgil. Don't listen to him. Ever. Repeat after me. We do not listen to Virgil. Except for about Anya's. I pick and choose what I listen to with Virgil. Is Virgil hot? I don't know. He's out there somewhere. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's dead by now, but he might be out there somewhere. Let's be real here. We don't know for sure. Like, you ask him. If I don't know. Here, let me roll for it. Let me treat him like I treat every other NPC. As implying that Virgil's an NPC. According to this dice, yes, he's hot. Where was I? So then they went to where Pritheus' target of choice was, in the underworld. Because this dumb motherfucker thought it was a good idea to go try and bewed Persephone. Of all the people, Persephone was his choice. But while traveling down to the underworld to find Persephone, they stopped to rest atop a rock in Tartarus, and found their bodies suddenly unable to move, stuck in this exhausted, paralyzed state before being tortured by the Furies. Eventually Theseus? I can't say these names. I'm doomed. Eventually Theseus was brought back out by Heracles, supposedly because Hades decided he was the lesser of the offenders since he didn't plan to kidnap his wife. Yeah, Theseus did try to save Prometheus, but the whole underworld supposedly shook because they did not want Prometheus leaving. He's still down there to this day. He returned home to discover his mom and Helen were taken by Pollux and Castor to Sparta, but just let them go. So now we can talk about the actual ship of Theseus. So the ship of Theseus is the most famous for the philosophical question about it. See, Athens actually preserved what they believed to be the ship of Theseus for a long time. They used it at a festival to Apollo to commemorate when Theseus went to Delos, and thus found it sacred and determined they would keep repairing the ship. They also refused to have executions during the time the ship was out to preserve the sanctity of the time. So the ship of Theseus was replaced, board by board. If all the boards are eventually replaced, is it still the same ship? And if the old boards were all taken and used to build a new ship, which one's the actual ship of Theseus? Philosophical question. The second half may not exist, actually. Every time I see it, it's always just the first half. Maybe I'm the crazy one, I came up with the second half. I could have sworn I'd seen it somewhere.
By the way, no, Terra, you are not insane. This one was actually proposed by a philosopher called Thomas Hobbes, 1588 to 1679. He was the one who made this one. I've heard this one 1,000 times. I don't know why you thought you made it up. Maybe you're crazy for thinking that. I don't know. Anyways, back to playing my kazoo.
To this idea, I decided that while Theseus was out on his numerous other adventures, the people of Athens actually did use the old boards to build a new ship, one that the party now uses, known as the Ariane, which was the original ship of Theseus' name as well. So yeah, that is our boy Theseus. I absolutely would fist fight Theseus. He is just a fuckboy. He is one of the ancient Greek fuckboys of all time. Is Theseus hot? I mean, in Hades he's kind of cute, but at the same time I wanted to strangle this man. And not in the fun way. you.